We return here on another Purple Friday as we discuss the Ravens Week 7 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals with a very special guest next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we return here with another episode of Locked On Ravens. I am your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire. This episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. Loving it. And we are back here on Purple Friday, another episode here of Locked On Ravens. The Ravens set to take on those Cincinnati Bengals in Week 7, the first place Baltimore Ravens, the second place Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC North. And here to break it all down with me today is a very special guest in 3-year Ravens wide receiver, 10-year NFL veteran, and Super Bowl 35 champion, Qadry Ismail. There's so much to talk about with the Ravens in general and what they have gone through as a team. And of course, breaking down this Week 7 matchup between Baltimore and Cincinnati. So without any further ado, let's dive into this conversation with former Ravens wide receiver, Qadry Ismail. Here with me today to dive into this Ravens team, this 5-1 Ravens team, and also their Week 7 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals is former Ravens wide receiver, 10-year NFL veteran, and Super Bowl 35 champion, Qadry Ismail. Qadry, it's great to have you on the show here talking Ravens football with me. And this is an exciting football team, right? 5-1 so far. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. And yes, it is good to know that the Ravens, despite all of the things that they've gone through, that they are sitting the top of the division at 5-1.
Yeah, and especially with just how many injuries this team has gone through so far this year. I know before the season started, the expectations of this team, they were high. And then those injuries to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters, they all happened. And this wasn't like they had a month or two in the preseason to kind of get things familiar and up to speed. But this happened like 10 days before the regular season started. So based off of your expectations for the team and just how they changed with those injuries, how impressed are you with how this team has performed so far?
Well, let me even say this. I mean, Ronnie Stanley has been put on IR this week, too, because of his ankle injury not healing up and him being able to go out there and perform the way he's been accustomed to perform at his all-pro level. I think it's interesting when you look at the league, it's not about you don't have talent. It's about how you can have quality depth, knowing that throughout the year you're going to be faced, I should say, with a crisis of some sort where you're going to have to overcome your injuries. And I think it's a testament to John Harbaugh. I think it's a testament to Eric DeCosta in the way they formulated this team, because you are looking at, yes, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. You're looking at the way in which Marcus Peters, super talented corner, goes down. And that was just in one practice. And so I think for them to not panic, to retool, to go out there and get guys like Devonta Freeman, Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, to rely upon free agent pickups that they had, and Villanueva going from the right side over to the left side to fill in for Ronnie Stanley. Marcus Peters goes down. Anthony Averitt steps up in his role. So I think it's just a remarkable job. There's a lot there as far as personnel packages, but I think it also says something when it comes to the coaches preparing their guys to play at a high level. And ultimately, you're talking about John Harbaugh having his team ready to compete week in and week out.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what's so impressive to me is the Ravens end up dropping that Week 1 game to the Raiders, and they're staring Kansas City in the face potentially to go down with an 0-2 record. The Chiefs had beaten them for multiple seasons. And then you have this resilient Ravens team with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. And in that game, the Adewale fumble, this team just finds ways to win. It's not always pretty, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day. The record is what matters at 5-1. So, Q, I'm looking at the Ravens coaching staff. I think it's a huge testament to the players and how they've done. But, you mentioned John Harbaugh getting his team prepared each and every week. How much of just a factor has John Harbaugh and even the new additions on the coaching staff? You look at Keith Williams and T. Martin. How big have those guys been this year?
Yeah, Keith Williams and T. Martin, they've been, a phenomenal addition to the ball club. When you talk about what they do well, they run the football extremely well historically. They put themselves on that upper tier level of, dominant run teams. Heck, 43 games in a row where you've rushed over 100 yards as a team. And, a lot of that has to do with Lamar Jackson. But when you also look at the postseason, you're looking at other teams who are equally as good as you are. And in the postseason, it's about who can gather momentum the quickest. The way you gather momentum the quickest and hold on to that momentum is by taking away the other team's strength and daring them to beat you with their weakness. And I think for the years that Lamar has been in the playoffs, he's done a phenomenal job to a certain degree. And that degree of weakness became the passing attack. They weren't able to fully take advantage of some of the opportunities that were presented when teams shut down their run. And so I think with Keith Williams, I think with T. Martin, they both come in. They have a collaborative effort of helping guys understand route concepts and understand, pass and spacing. Then you couple in the fact that you have a philosophy of no ego, no greed with G. Rowe, and for Greg Roman to allow them to morph and put into the offense this perceived weakness that is no longer, and we've seen that week in and week out. It's really been impressive to look at. I am, whether it be the Kansas City game, the Colts game clearly sticks out as one where you had to make some plays to get back in the game, and running the ball just wasn't going to happen. And they went out there and did it. You look at the Detroit game, and you had some mistakes and missteps by Hollywood Brown. However, when it mattered the most, you could see Lamar Jackson throwing it on 4th and 20 plus and completing it to Sammy Watkins. It just goes on. And I think a lot of that has to do with this newfound relationship and the chemistry that, everybody has with one another to enhance the offense.
Yeah, the unit has looked so much more balanced this season, which I've been really impressed with. But you mentioned Lamar Jackson in there, Q, and he's just been phenomenal this year. He's definitely in the conversation to win potentially a second MVP of his young career. And you mentioned kind of how the run game, honestly, teams have been focusing in on that, or at least it seemed like it with Detroit, and you can go to Denver, Indianapolis. The Ravens have been throwing the ball in those games more than they had thrown it. And overall, it looks like this team as a whole, they have become so much more balanced to the point where teams and the narratives have been, okay, well, if you stop the Ravens run game, Lamar Jackson can't beat you with his arm, and he can't come back from 10 down or 17 down. Well, he has absolutely thrown all those narratives away. I mean, he's the narrative buster, continuing to pop those bubbles. So with the Ravens and with Lamar Jackson, he was expected to take a huge leap this year by a lot of people. And so far he's done that. So where have you seen the biggest growth in his game?
So the one thing that we saw last year that he really struggled with was the outside throwing lanes, the outside the numbers type throws. He was very accurate as far as inside the numbers. He was very comfortable with, the ability to scramble and extend plays and then get the ball out. I think this year, a huge case in point was when they were trying to get back in the game against Indy, and they were throwing the ball down the field. And it was I believe it was either second or third long. And Lamar calmly went to his first read, wasn't there. Second read, wasn't there. He climbs the pocket, resets his feet, and now he's looking to his backside receiver, which was Hollywood Brown, on an 18-yard in cut, and boom, just delivers a beautiful ball to him. That showed me that Lamar is processing things so much better in the pocket and just feeling more aware of his pocket's presence, and it's that play that we've seen, but then other plays that has he's done. Like I said, the fourth down throw to Sammy Watkins, he just was cool about it. It wasn't something that well, we hope and pray. It's like, nope, that's what Lamar's going to do. And the crazy thing about it, there are 4 legit touchdown plays that I know Hollywood Brown would love to say he'll have a second chance with, because not just even the legend of Lamar grows even more when you stack on those plays, and those plays conservatively, all of them were going over 30 yards. So you do the numbers, and I think he's still there were some numbers, positive numbers, awesome numbers left on the table.
Yeah, there definitely were. And when factoring in all of that, you mentioned the numbers could be so much higher, but it's also a testament to the whole team that Lamar Jackson doesn't necessarily have to have those 442-yard passing days for not only this team to win, but to blow out a team like they did against the very good Los Angeles Chargers football team in Week 6. But Q, moving on to the defensive side of the ball for a little bit, you mentioned at the beginning of the show Marcus Peters and how big of a loss that injury was to this defense. Now, Anthony Averitt has stepped up. We'll throw away the Indianapolis game for now. That was not his finest game as a professional, but he's looked pretty solid outside of that. How big has Averitt been to kind of, I guess, bridge the gap between Peters and his replacement?
So, obviously, talent is talent. There's a reason why guys have started in the league. But if you take anybody for granted, regardless of their position on the roster and on the depth chart, I think you basically are looking at a situation where you're going to get beat. And I think for Anthony Averitt, not that he took it for granted, but I think, there were some platitudes that were thrown his way. You can get a little caught up in it and you pay the price. But the process of him rehumbling himself and really just relocking in kind of shows his level of commitment to his craft. And now it's about stacking one practice after another. Then that turns into, a powerful opportunity to go into a game and be the player that, he feels he's confident and comfortable being. So lots there to look at when it comes to, this idea that, Anthony Averitt can't be the consistent quarterback that Marcus Peters is. Marcus Peters talented? Absolutely. Did he make plays? Absolutely. But now, hey, injuries happen. The king is dead. Long live the king. I think Anthony Averitt, looking forward to seeing what he can do against the Cincinnati Bengals, who, by the way, they're looking really strong themselves. So I think this is another game, especially since it's a division opponent that he's going to have to really lock in and be ready to go.
Yeah, and we'll be diving into that game in the second and third segments here. But Q, my last question before we head into our first break is about a rookie who's performed, I think, higher than a lot of people's expectations. That is Adewale Ojomo, the Ravens' 31st overall pick. He's had some flashes, but he's been a pretty consistent contributor. And I think a lot of people looked at him as more of a project type player. Now, the Ravens expected huge things from him out of the gate, and they made that pretty clear. And so far, he's done that. But with your expectations of whatever those were with Ojomo, how impressed have you been with his performance?
Extremely impressed. As advertised, when he came out of Penn State, people were knocking him because he didn't have a sack. His talent is off the charts as far as his athleticism. A man that big, running that fast 4.3. I know guys who been in the league that couldn't even sniff that, and they're half his weight. He reminds me a lot of Javon Curse, who played for the Tennessee Titans in my era, and Javon was they called him the freak. And he was a freak for a reason, because that dude, he flat out can just play, and he was just so athletic and so amazing. Now, Adewale, he has the luxury of having a veteran presence like Justin Houston, who they call Yoda. And so with Yoda out there, he's giving the young Jedi an opportunity to learn the ways of the Force. And again, I don't think it's an accident that you see Adewale Ojomo making the impact plays that he's making, because he's learning and he's wanting to be a professional And in that, you can see where, he's taking the little details and he's really been able to apply them to his craft.
Yeah, and always been a huge part of what they do on the defensive side of the ball. But you mentioned Houston, and his impact goes far beyond the field. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people wanted him in Baltimore and why the Ravens decided to bring him in, because he's still a very talented pass rusher. But the things that he can teach players like Owe and Jalen Ferguson, Tyus Bowser, and those young pass rushers, they're going to pay dividends, not just this year, but I think in the future as well. But we'll head into our first break. When we get back, we'll be talking about the Ravens Week 7 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. So stay tuned, and we will be back soon. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, baseball, postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We returned here, our second segment of this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with former Ravens wide receiver, 10-year veteran, Super Bowl 35 champion Qadry Ismail. And Qadry, looking at this game in Week 7, it's the first second place teams battling it out in the AFC North, but it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers in second place. It's not the Cleveland Browns. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. And so based off of what you've seen from them, this is a 4-2 football team in Cincinnati. How impressed have you been with them? And where is this in line with what you expected from them heading into 2021?
Well, Cincinnati wasn't even on the radar. Preseason, off-season, draft season, postseason, after the, Super Bowl confetti was, being picked up and thrown away. They were just, a team that, Joe Burrow, what will he do as far as coming back from his knee injury? Hey, there's Jamar Chase that they're talking about drafting. Will they draft him? Who knows? Not that it's a who cares scenario, but there just were, no real splashes. I think everybody was so caught up in the hype of Cleveland and, crowning them the third, fourth year in a row as the Super Bowl champions of the offseason. And they just seem to keep on, being crowned the champion. I think for Cincinnati and what that staff has done it's just, incredible. And I think that's something that, when you look at the Ravens, obviously they didn't, John Harbaugh team for granted, but I'm sure they're looking at the tape and like, yeah, we're going to have our hands full against a very good quality opponent.
Yeah, and Cincinnati, both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, have impressed me. I thought the defense had a few holes. They added a bunch of veterans in there, and they've all meshed really well. The Cincinnati offense, obviously with their big trio of wide receivers and Burrow, has played well. But Q, let's start off with the Ravens offense and kind of get back to Lamar Jackson, because this is a team that Lamar Jackson has had plenty of success over the past 5 starts. He started 5 career games against them, and he's outscored them. His teams have 161 to 57. So that matters in the grand scheme of things a little bit, but this is a new and improved Cincinnati Bengals team. So Q, how would you expect the Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson to attack a Bengals defense that is improved but still has a couple of holes?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the protection up front. They have a very talented defensive front. They do some things differently. And every team, to be perfectly honest with you, has attacked them differently. I think when you look at the one first year meeting, or no, it was second year meeting when Lamar was full-time starter and his MVP, I think that's where we saw just Lamar just destroying the Cincinnati Bengals. Since then, I think they've done a better job of retooling themselves, getting some speed, on that interior, and they've been able to collapse the pocket and do a really good job of really just getting after the quarterback. So I just assume it's how you're going to continue to grow your running game and your rushing attack. They've changed it up so many times, which is a positive, actually. It just goes to show you the talent that he has as a signal caller, run game coordinator. Also, you're looking at the way the guys are prepared to. I think it's just great that, you have so many different options to run the ball, whether it be the wide zone, inside zone, whether it be power, whether Lamar being under center. There's some different looks that I think they're going to have in their arsenal to combat what we know as a very strong defensive front.
Yeah, and Q, you mentioned the run game for the Ravens and all the new pieces that are coming in and learning this offense, and still to this day learning the offense. Do you feel like this Ravens running game, it's been more of, I guess, more of a work in progress than we've seen just because the guys are continuing to pick up that playbook and just don't have as much experience in there? Or do you feel like it could be because of the offensive line and kind of all the shuffling they've had to go through? Or is it both for you?
Oh my gosh, no question, it's both. I mean, it has to be. Anytime you look at running the ball, it starts up front. That's the old tried and true cliche. Everything starts up front in the trenches. And I think for what the Ravens have done in the past to get those 43 consecutive games of 100 yards plus of rushing, it's about just knowing your assignment. And because they do so much, that's a positive for you as an offense because it puts pressure on the opposing team's defense. Now, with that said, like I said, you have so many new guys that it can be a little bit tricky. And how do you get guys to understand their role? Well, the mesh point is a challenge because they do the run pass option, those RPOs. Are really challenging to know and kind of get the feel of whether or not I'm grabbing the ball. Am I seeing it on the same page as Lamar? They got away from a little bit of that because of just the chemistry was a work in progress. So I'm expecting that this is closing out the first part of the season before they head into the bye. It wouldn't surprise me if they sprinkled in some more of the RPO, readdress some of the pulling guard action that we've seen them be so famous for. So I believe Nick Boyle is back. It'll be interesting to see if he's up and active. If he's up and active, that's going to be a really good thing. Another tight end, another weapon, another opportunity to utilize what I dubbed as bully ball when they just had multiple tight end groups and they went out there and they really took it to the opposing team. So there's some options there, and I'm curious to see how it unfolds when it comes to the Ravens and the running game and Greg Roman.
Yeah, and Q, I think part of that bully ball is just the time control offense that this team really has some success with. When they're running the football, they get up and they hold on to the ball and have really good drives, just running the football really well. How important is it for you, at least in this game against a high-powered Cincinnati offense, to limit those opportunities and just have the ball in the Ravens offense's hands for whether it be 7, 8, 9, even 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of sure you want to keep the ball controlled, but you want to score too. And they've done a great job, I think, since number 8's been under center of doing just that, scoring. It's not often that you get a low scoring game with the Ravens. And I think for what Cincinnati likes to do as far as creating big plays, causing turnovers on offense as well as defense, I think it's a scenario where you're gonna have to have your A game, but also you're looking at just a team. If they're gonna possess the ball, it's one thing, but possess the ball, be up 14-0, that changes the landscape for your defense and gives them much more needed confidence against a good Bengals offense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Q. And looking at the Ravens passing game, I think it'll be really interesting not only to see how Lamar Jackson throws this football, because I think he can throw it well against Cincinnati, but Rashad Bateman is a player who a lot of people were anticipating his NFL debut in week 6, ends that game with 4 receptions for 29 yards, led the team, or was tied for the team lead in targets with Mark Andrews. Had that drop that kind of bounced off of his chest into the Chargers defender's hands, but overall played 45 snaps. That's a lot of snaps for a debut. It seemed like the Ravens weren't expecting him to play that many. Would you expect Bateman's role in this offense this week to be a little bit more increased, even more snaps for him, or do you think they might dial it back? Because Sammy Watkins, is not confirmed yet, but he might not play again this week.
Yeah, I think Rashad Bateman for 45 snaps, as you said, the little details in which he went out there and played was phenomenal. I thought he was concise with his routes. I thought he was confident in his way in which he ran and got open. Like he checked off all the boxes. And then at the end of the day, when you needed to catch the ball, he caught the ball. Clearly, the last one is something that is going to stick in his craw, but that's a good thing because you want a guy that's hungry and wanting to improve. But yeah, overall, oh my gosh, I mean, he did phenomenal, and rightly so. We're going to give him his flowers. But hey, okay, one game in your book, Rook. What do you got next? What's up? What are you going to do to have an encore? I know that they're going to be needing him, this Ravens offense. So it'll be cool because he's another weapon, and that's not short-sighting Duvernay or Prochet, who both guys, they've been really tremendous while he was out. And so it's another weapon, another opportunity for Lamar Jackson just to really do what he needs to do in the passing attack, and that's find the open receiver and deliver the ball to his playmakers.
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson has those playmakers this year. I mean, so much depth, as you mentioned. It's a good problem for this team to have. You're talking about Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews and Bateman. Once Watkins comes back, he'll be there, and Duvernay and Prochet obviously in there as well. We'll head into our final break. When we get back, we'll be flipping the field, talking about the Ravens defense. Now they can stop Joe Burrow in the high-powered Cincinnati offense, so stay tuned for that, and we'll be back soon. This episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. You can come in after a Little League game. You can stop at McDonald's after a big sporting event. So head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. And you can even have a Locked On Ravens watch party to watch the Ravens game there at McDonald's. I'm loving it. And Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors, including coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, salted caramel, cookies and cream, and German chocolate? Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. You can order today and get that mint brownie or raspberry or whatever you like. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We returned here, our final segment of this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still here with Qadry Ismail. And Qadry, I think that for this Ravens defense, definitely has struggled a bit with pass and just stopping the pass in general. But we saw against the very high-powered Los Angeles offense in Week 6 the ability for them to stop that. And I think that was huge as a confidence builder going up against now Joe Burrow and his trio of phenomenal wide receivers with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd in there, and T. Higgins. Now, the Ravens have Marlon Humphrey and Anthony Averitt as well, who we talked about in the first segment. Jimmy Smith is there. Brandon Stevens is playing great football, as is the safety duo of Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark. How would you expect this Ravens secondary to match up against a really, really talented Bengals pass offense in Week 7?
Well, I think they're going to have their hands full. Traditionally, the Bengals, for whatever the reason, they've given the Ravens fit, especially in the passing game. I think what we saw against the talented Herbert, as well as his trio of receivers and tight end, was that a defense collectively decided to tackle. Number one. Number two, play relax and play fast. And so if they have captured that magic again, Josh Bynes comes in, really helps out, struggling Patrick Queen. They go in and do some different personnel shifting with the linebackers. I think it's settled down that Tavon Young, who, is you got to call his name out there too. He's done a great job. As a matter of fact, he's coming off the edge and creating pressure and havoc in the backfield when it's obvious passing downs. Clearly, you talk about Chuck Clark and, Sean Elliott, who got his first career interception off of a seam route against the Chargers. So, they're all going to have to step up again. All of them. Higgins can, flat out fly. Boyd is Mr. Clutch on third down. And then you just talk about the talent of Chase and Jamar. I think, it's hard to play wide receiver as a rookie in the NFL. For him to go out there and make it look as easy as he has, especially on the deep plays, the deep ball, really just super impressive the way he's been able to do it. I am tipping the cap to him in the way he's been able to play. So I think Joe Burrow needs to feel uncomfortable in the pocket, but he doesn't get rattled. He's a confident young quarterback. He's not afraid of contact. I think other guys, sometimes they're in that pocket, they feel a little pressure. They start feeling ghosts like, whoa, God, what's going on? Let me get rid of the ball. But he has everything he needs to succeed, and he's doing it. He's a very well seasoned quarterback and playing well for the Bengals. So it's going to be a big challenge, I think, for this Ravens defense to repeat what they did against Justin Herbert. But I think they can do it because of the different personnel changes that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and the Ravens have so many talented playmakers in that secondary. I don't know how I forgot about Tavon Young, but yeah, shout out to Tavon Young and what he's been doing this year. He's come back great after that injury and what he's done this year. But Q, you mentioned just how Burrow has performed this season. Going back to last year, he played in one game against the Ravens, and it was probably his worst game as a pro. The Ravens sacked him 7 times. That Bengals offensive line was not good in that game, and he was a little thrown off by what the Ravens did with their blitzes and Don Martindale and his exotic blitz packages. Now with Burrow having that extra seasoning and now he's playing so well, do you feel like, and you kind of talked about it a bit, he'll be a bit more poised this time around, especially with the weapons that he has?
He'll be a bit more poised. I think the key thing, though, is getting the ball out of your hands quickly. Anytime, I think Justin Herbert, there were times where you could see where the defense, they did a ton of overload blitzing. And so they'd bring what perceived as 7 guys up front. And now you, as a center and quarterback, you got to figure out where the pressure is coming from. And so if you slide protection to the right and the pressure is coming to the left, well, you're in trouble. We mentioned Tavon Young. Okay. If he's at the line of scrimmage, or Sean Elliott's at the line of scrimmage, or Chuck Clark's at the line of scrimmage, you got to factor that in. But at the same time, if you get the ball out of your hands quickly and you can be accurate with your throwing, I think there's some opportunity there to take advantage of this Ravens defense. It's going to be imperative that the Ravens play sound, disciplined football, which we saw that they're capable of doing, but they got to do it another week against, like I said, against a Burrows team that is not the same guy that got sacked 7 times.
Yeah, exactly. This offense is much improved. They have the run game there with Joe Mixon, obviously, and a better offensive line than they had last season. But Q, looking at this game as a whole, how are you feeling about this one? Do you think that the Ravens can come out with a win here? Do you feel like the Ravens will pick up their 6th straight win against a very talented Bengals football team? Or do you think this could be a game where Cincinnati shows that, hey, we're here for real and we're ready to make a push for the playoffs?
I think it's a trap game because, you're feeling good about some of the games that you've played. You've gone under the bright lights and you've produced. Sunday night, Monday night, you've done it all. And so it's a trap game. I think it's a division opponent. So that's, you're sniffing the cheese. You're recognizing, man, this thing can blow up in our faces if we aren't prepared. I think they're going to be. John Harbaugh's team is going to be prepared. But I think at the same time, it's kind of easy to think that, yeah, we got this. And so I think it's going to be a closer game than what we've seen. I'm hoping that the Ravens will get out to a fast start. I don't know. I look at this and you gear up for Pittsburgh because they're the Steelers and they're your rival. You play well against Cleveland because Cleveland is that annoying little brother that you just want to slap in the back of the head. But with Cincinnati is kind of like that cousin who's real super cool, be coming over and be like, yo, let's go play. And so you wind up like being in awe of your cousin rather than saying, yo, cousin, we're going to go play my game, not your game.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this for sure. And the AFC North, I think, regardless of how this game goes, it's going to be a talented division for so many years with Jackson and Burrow and Mayfield and Pittsburgh. They'll figure it out. Their quarterback situation is a bit more unknown. But I think this game, it's really important, as you mentioned, Q, for the Ravens to get off to a fast start because this Bengals offense can put up points in a hurry. And if that starts to happen, it turns into a shootout. The Ravens can certainly keep up. I mean, they're one of the best offenses in the NFL. But they've done it before. And you mentioned the trap game where sometimes you mentioned it can be a bit of a thing where, yeah, they have the success, but all of a sudden the team comes in that also is hot. And then it's just 2 teams clashing at once. So I think the Ravens will pull it out. I've seen people say it's going to be a blowout. I don't see it that way. I think these are two very talented teams, and I'm excited for a good game on Sunday. But Q, that's all I have for you here today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show. It was great talking football with you. And as I mentioned, I'm hoping that we get a good game on Sunday between these two teams.
Yeah, Kevin, I know that I've had fun talking shop with you with talking about our black and purple. Definitely the vault will be on lockdown, and Omar's whistle means that Lamar is coming. So anytime you got Lamar Jackson, you have your opportunity to win. He's proven that. I think it's not about what the Cincinnati Bengals are going to do, but it's about how you're going to contain a talented, dynamic quarterback in Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, whenever the Ravens have number 8 out there, they have a shot to win the football game with as dynamic and as talented as a player that he is. But thank you so much again, Q. We're going to take a 2-day break here on Locked On Ravens. When we get back here on Monday, then we'll dive into everything that happened in that game between Baltimore and Cincinnati. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you on Monday.